Mayo and Meatball's Dream 1 of 4. Audiobook number 11 of the RV Family Series. Chapter 1. The Star Wars Marathon. The RV's interior was bathed in the soft, flickering glow of the television screen. Mr. Wexler, glasses perched on the tip of his nose, sat slouched in his favorite armchair with a bowl of popcorn in his lap. Jesse, at 16, sprawled out on the couch with his earbuds in, tapping his fingers to some song only he could hear. Robbie, at 8, had his legs stretched across the length of the RV, his head nestled in a blanket, eyes wide as he absorbed every moment of the movie. But Mayo, at 11, was on the floor, his head resting against the couch where Meatball, his loyal French bulldog, lay beside him. The sound of TIE fighters zooming across the screen mixed with the low hum of the RV's engine as they cruised along the empty highway under the stars. "Are you sure you're okay staying up for the whole marathon?" Mrs. Wexler asked from the kitchen, where she was preparing a late-night snack. Mayo gave a half-hearted thumbs up, though his eyelids were already feeling heavy. It wasn't long before his gaze drifted away from the screen, his eyes growing heavy as the characters battled in space. Beside him, Meatball gave a contented sigh, his one good ear twitching as the action on the screen grew louder. "Meatball, you should stay awake," Mayo whispered, his voice tinged with sleepiness. "What if something happens?" Meatball, with his trademark snort, just rolled over, his squinted eyes barely open. "I'm good, kid," Meatball muttered telepathically in Mayo's mind. "Besides, I don't need to watch the movie. I've been to space before. It's all about the snacks anyway." Mayo laughed softly, but the exhaustion was catching up with him. His body shifted, curling into a ball on the floor as he found comfort against Meatball's warm side. Just as the lightsaber duel between Luke and Darth Vader reached its climax, Mayo's eyelids closed, and he drifted off into a deep sleep. Meatball's snout nudged Mayo's shoulder, his voice soft but urgent in the boy's mind.
"Mayo."
"Mayo, wake up. It's happening." Mayo blinked, groggy, but the feeling in his gut wasn't from sleep. It felt like something had pulled him, tugged him into the unknown. The RV had disappeared. The screen, the stars, the flickering lights, everything faded into a soft, swirling mist. The sound of the battle had quieted, replaced by the hum of strange machinery and distant voices. He looked around, disoriented, but there was something oddly familiar about this place. "Meatball? Where are we?" Mayo's voice was barely a whisper as he stood up. His surroundings shifted, and he realized he wasn't in the RV anymore. Instead, he was in the middle of a lush forest, with towering trees stretching above him, their leaves a deep green under a clear blue sky. "I'm right here, kid," Meatball's voice echoed in his head, now far more serious than Mayo had ever heard him. "And we're not in Kansas anymore. We're in space. Well, kind of." Mayo turned to see Meatball trotting up beside him, looking almost regal. He was wearing a flowing gown, a tiny tiara resting on his head. The French bulldog's one good ear flopped over as he stared at Mayo with a mischievous glint in his eyes. "Princess Leila?" Mayo asked, eyebrows raised in confusion. "Princess Leila," Meatball confirmed with a proud puff of air. "And you're Juke Skywalker, the galaxy's last hope." Mayo blinked, his heart skipping a beat. He glanced down at his hands, now holding a shiny, glowing lightsaber. The weight felt real. The hum of the weapon, the coolness of the handle, it was all tangible. But the strangest part was the pull in his chest, the feeling that somehow everything that was happening made sense. "This isn't a dream, is it?" Mayo asked, his voice unsure. "Oh, it's a dream, all right," Meatball replied with a wry grin. "But don't get too comfortable, Juke. The galaxy's in trouble, and it's up to us to save it. Now, grab your saber. We've got work to do." Before Mayo could respond, a loud crash echoed through the forest, followed by the unmistakable hum of distant TIE fighters. Something big was coming. "I guess we don't get much rest in this galaxy," Mayo muttered, gripping the lightsaber tightly. "Not unless you count me as a nap buddy," Meatball quipped, already moving forward. But no time for sleep. The Empire's waiting. And just like that, their adventure began. Chapter 2: Entering the Dream. Mayo's feet barely touched the ground as he followed Meatball through the dense forest, which now felt like a living, breathing entity. The air was thick with the scent of alien flowers, and overhead, the twin suns of this strange world beat down on them, casting an otherworldly glow over everything. The sound of footsteps was muffled by the soft, glowing moss beneath their feet, and the only thing that seemed to cut through the stillness was the occasional, distant roar of an Imperial ship flying overhead. "Stay sharp, Juke," Meatball's voice echoed in Mayo's mind, more serious now than before. "This isn't your average dream. These forces are real, and they'll do whatever it takes to stop us." Mayo's grip on his lightsaber tightened as he scanned their surroundings, his mind racing. He knew he had been pulled into some sort of adventure, but what was he supposed to do now? He was just a regular kid, well, regular except for the telepathic connection with his dog. "Where are we headed?" Mayo asked, trying to push the confusion out of his mind. Meatball turned, his tiny legs moving with surprising speed. "We've got to find the Rebel Alliance. They're the ones who can help us take down the Empire. And right now, that's our only chance." Before Mayo could ask more questions, a soft rustling sound came from the trees ahead. Both he and Meatball froze, their eyes narrowing. Out of the shadows emerged a small, alien creature with glowing blue eyes. It was no taller than Mayo, with a tuft of spiky hair and green skin. It was dressed in a patchwork of armor, a makeshift helmet sitting loosely on its head. "Who goes there?" the creature demanded in a squeaky, high-pitched voice. Meatball stepped forward, puffing out his chest. "It's us, Layla and Juke. We're here to help. We need to get to the rebel base." The alien eyed them both suspiciously, his head tilting to one side. "You're a dog, and you're a kid. How are you going to help?" Mayo couldn't help but chuckle. "I might be a kid, but I've got a lightsaber." The alien blinked, then let out a short laugh. "A lightsaber, huh? Well, you'll need more than that to take down the Empire. Follow me. The rebel base isn't far." Without another word, the alien turned and led them through the forest. Mayo and Meatball followed, unsure of what to expect next, but trusting that they were heading in the right direction. A few minutes later, they reached the edge of the forest, where a hidden entrance was carved into a large stone wall. The alien waved his hand over a small panel, and the stone door creaked open with a deep, rumbling sound. "We're in," the alien said, glancing over his shoulder. "Stay close." As they stepped into the hidden base, Mayo's eyes widened. The rebel base was a maze of corridors, dimly lit by flickering lights. The walls were covered with holographic maps and old, worn-out equipment, but the atmosphere felt alive with the energy of people working together toward a common goal. Meatball hopped up beside Mayo, his tail wagging in excitement. "Welcome to the Rebel Alliance, kid. This is where the magic happens." Mayo followed the alien deeper into the base, passing various groups of rebels gathered around holographic tables, discussing plans and strategizing for their next move. There was a sense of urgency in the air, and Mayo couldn't help but feel a sense of belonging, despite the chaos around him. They were led to a large room at the heart of the base, where a group of rebels stood around a hologram of a planet. One of them, a tall, muscular woman with short cropped hair, turned as they entered. "Who are these two?" she asked, her voice strong and commanding. The alien gave a half-hearted salute. "This is Layla, Princess Layla and Juke Skywalker. They say they're here to help." The woman raised an eyebrow at Mayo and Meatball. "I'm General Sila. If you're here to fight the Empire, you'd better be ready. We've been working on a plan to take them down, but we could use all the help we can get." Mayo nodded, though his mind was still racing. "What's the plan?" General Sila motioned toward the hologram. "The Empire has established a stronghold on the planet Draxos. It's heavily fortified, but we believe there's a weak point, an underground reactor that powers their defenses. If we can destroy it, we can disable their whole operation. And how are we supposed to get inside? Mayo asked, a little doubtful. That's where you come in, Skywalker, Sila said with a smirk. We need someone who can navigate through their defenses, someone with the Force. And that, my young Jedi, is you. Mayo's stomach flipped. The Force? He was just a kid from an RV, and now he was supposed to be a Jedi? But Meatball's voice was reassuring in his mind. Don't worry, Juke. You've got this. We just need to stick together and keep our wits about us. Ready for the first mission, kid? Meatball asked out loud, his voice full of enthusiasm. Mayo wasn't sure he was ready, but the look in Meatball's eyes, his one good ear perked up in determination, gave him the courage he needed. He nodded. Let's do it. Chapter 3. The mission begins. The cool, metallic walls of the rebel base seemed to hum with purpose. Mayo, still trying to wrap his mind around everything, stood alongside Meatball in front of General Sila. Around them, the members of the Rebel Alliance prepared for their next move. Maps flickered on holographic screens, and soldiers armed with blasters moved briskly between stations, readying for their assault on the Empire's stronghold. Are you sure you're ready for this, Juke? Meatball whispered, his voice cautious but determined. I mean, this is a big deal. We're not just saving the galaxy, we're sneaking into an Empire stronghold. Mayo turned to his trusty dog, who was now wearing a tiny rebel vest that made him look both ridiculous and strangely dignified. I don't even know how I got here, Meatball, Mayo said, adjusting the lightsaber in his hand. But we're in this together, right? We've faced worse stuff before. That's the spirit, kid, Meatball replied, giving him a wink. General Sila, noticing their exchange, approached with a serious look on her face. Time is short. If we don't act quickly, the Empire will fortify their position, and we won't get another chance. You two need to move out now. The urgency in her voice was enough to shake Mayo from his thoughts. He took a deep breath and nodded. What's the plan? We'll transport you close to the enemy base using one of our stealth ships, Sila explained, pointing to a nearby hangar where a sleek, compact vessel sat waiting. Once there, you'll infiltrate their defenses and destroy the underground reactor. The longer it takes, the harder it will be for us to help you. The fate of this mission rests in your hands. Mayo swallowed hard. The weight of the responsibility was heavier than he expected. But as he looked down at Meatball, who had his usual calm grin, he realized he couldn't back down now. This was his chance to prove that even though he was just a kid, he could make a difference. Ready? Mayo asked, his voice steadier than he felt. Born ready. Kid, Meatball replied, puffing out his chest. The group moved quickly to the stealth ship, a ship designed to remain undetected by enemy sensors. The ship's hull gleamed in the dim light, and it hummed softly as they boarded. The crew worked efficiently, securing everything for launch, while Mayo and Meatball settled into the passenger area. Mayo glanced around, taking in the ship's unfamiliar technology. The walls were smooth and shiny, with blinking lights and buttons everywhere. Meatball sniffed around, his nose twitching with curiosity. This place smells like, well, a lot of buttons and metal, Meatball quipped, his voice light as ever. But I think we'll manage. Mayo couldn't help but grin, the tension easing a bit with Meatball's typical humor. As the engines roared to life, the ship lifted off, soaring silently through the skies. The world outside looked peaceful, serene, but Mayo knew that peace was fleeting. They were heading straight into enemy territory. The stealth ship cut through the clouds, moving fast toward their destination. Mayo couldn't help but stare out of the small window, the feeling of the unknown settling deep in his stomach. Was he really cut out for this? How could he defeat an empire when he was just a regular kid with no training? But Meatball was beside him, and with his dog's unwavering confidence, Mayo found some courage of his own. We'll get through this, right? Mayo asked, looking at Meatball. Of course, kid, Meatball replied, licking his lips. You've got the force, I've got the brains. We make a great team. Before Mayo could respond, the ship suddenly jolted, throwing him against his seat. Outside the window, a cluster of enemy ships appeared from nowhere, surrounding them with alarming speed. The ship's alarms blared, and the crew scrambled to their posts. "Hold on," the pilot shouted. "We've been compromised." Mayo gripped his seat, his heart pounding as the stealth ship zigzagged through the air, avoiding laser fire. The crew worked desperately to evade the enemy ships, but there were too many of them. One of the ships locked onto their trail, and the next moment, they felt a hard impact. The ship shook violently, and Mayo's stomach lurched. "This is it, isn't it?" Mayo muttered under his breath. "Not yet, it's not." Meatball barked, his telepathic voice suddenly filled with energy. "This is just a detour, Juke. We've got work to do." Despite the chaos, Mayo couldn't help but feel comforted by Meatball's words. The French bulldog's loyalty and sharp wit were a lifeline, and Mayo knew that with him by his side, they had a chance. The ship swerved dramatically to the left, narrowly avoiding another blast. It was clear they couldn't keep this up much longer. "Prepare to land," the pilot called out. "We're going to have to make an emergency landing." Mayo felt his heart race as the ship plunged toward the surface. Through the small viewport, he saw a rocky landscape ahead, a vast, desert-like terrain dotted with large, jagged boulders. The ship's engines screamed as they descended, the ship's control rattling in protest. "We're almost there, Juke," Meatball shouted, his voice tinged with excitement and urgency. "Just stay focused." In the chaos of the emergency landing, Mayo could barely hear the roar of the ship's descent over his own heartbeat. The ground rushed up to meet them, and with a bone-jarring thud, the ship hit the desert floor, skidding to a stop. Mayo's head spun as the dust settled. He could hear the groan of the ship's body as it came to a halt. It wasn't a soft landing, but they were alive. "We've got no time to waste," General Sila's voice crackled over the intercom. "Get to the reactor. The countdown has started." Mayo stood up, shaking off the disorientation. "Let's go, Meatball. We have a galaxy to save." Meatball hopped off the seat, his tiny legs springing into action. "You know it, Juke. Let's make this quick." With their mission clearer than ever, Mayo and Meatball rushed toward the hatch. The Rebel Alliance might have been in disarray, but one thing was certain. Mayo and Meatball were ready for whatever came next. Chapter 4: Into the Empire's Stronghold. The desert air hit Mayo like a wall as he and Meatball dashed from the wreckage of the stealth ship. The ship had come to an abrupt halt, leaving them stranded in an alien landscape, but there was no time to waste. General Sila's voice still buzzed in Mayo's mind, urging him to move quickly, to destroy the reactor before the Empire could retaliate. "We can't waste any more time," Mayo said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. He looked down at Meatball, who was already sniffing the ground and wagging his tail. "Ready, buddy?" Meatball gave a determined bark. "You bet, Juke. I've been ready since we started this whole save the galaxy thing." With the ship's wreckage behind them, they made their way through the rocky desert landscape. The sun beat down harshly, but Mayo barely noticed the heat, his focus entirely on what lay ahead. They couldn't afford to let the Empire know they had landed. If they were going to infiltrate the reactor and destroy it, they had to remain undetected. Mayo gripped his lightsaber, now glowing blue in the harsh sunlight. He hadn't yet fully grasped the power of the Force, but he could feel it pulsing within him, guiding him, giving him confidence. "This way," Meatball said, his voice echoing in Mayo's mind. The dog darted ahead, his tiny body moving quickly and effortlessly across the rough terrain. Mayo followed, keeping a close eye on their surroundings. As they crested a large dune, they saw it, an enormous compound, surrounded by a high wall topped with guard towers. The Empire's stronghold loomed in the distance, its massive gates seemingly impenetrable. Mayo's heart sank as he realized how formidable their task would be. This wasn't just a random enemy base, it was the heart of the Empire's operations in the sector. "This is it," Mayo muttered, his gaze narrowing as he examined the perimeter. "We need to find a way in." Meatball grinned, his tiny legs still moving with purpose. "I've got an idea. Follow me." The dog led Mayo to a narrow gap in the side of the compound wall, just big enough for them to squeeze through. Mayo's heart raced as he followed Meatball into the shadows, their movements silent and swift. As they neared the entrance, Mayo's senses heightened. He could feel the presence of the Empire's guards, soldiers patrolling the outer areas, unaware of their arrival. Mayo's grip tightened on his lightsaber, ready to defend himself if necessary. But Meatball's voice in his mind kept him calm. "Stay focused, Juke. We can do this without getting caught." "Trust your instincts," Meatball said. They moved quickly, blending into the shadows and making their way through the compound's outer perimeter. Mayo's mind raced, analyzing the situation. They had to find the entrance to the underground reactor without drawing attention. Every step felt like it could be their last. They approached a large building near the center of the compound, its entrance guarded by 2 Empire soldiers. Mayo and Meatball crouched behind a stack of crates, waiting for the right moment. "Can you sense them?" Mayo whispered, his hand resting on the hilt of his lightsaber. Meatball's eyes narrowed as he sniffed the air. "I can hear their thoughts. They're bored, a little nervous, but nothing too dangerous. We'll be fine." Mayo's breath caught in his throat as the 2 guards turned away from the entrance. This was their chance. "Now," Mayo whispered. Together, they sprinted toward the entrance, ducking into the doorway just as the guards turned back. They held their breath as the door slid shut behind them with a soft hiss. Inside, the air was cool and sterile. The corridor stretched out before them, illuminated by flickering lights. Mayo's mind raced as he tried to orient himself. The reactor was underground, but they had no map, no clear direction. "This way," Meatball barked, his tiny legs tapping across the metallic floor. Mayo followed without question, trusting Meatball's instincts. They moved deeper into the compound, bypassing security doors and avoiding patrols. It was a tense journey, but somehow they managed to stay out of sight. Eventually, they arrived at a large door with a keypad next to it. The door seemed to lead deeper into the compound, closer to the reactor. Mayo approached cautiously, examining the keypad. He didn't have the codes, but he could sense the force pulsing in his mind, guiding him. "Let me try something," Mayo said, his voice steady. He closed his eyes, focusing on the door and the energy around it. His hand hovered near the keypad as he felt the force flow through him. He didn't know exactly how, but he reached out, trusting the feeling within him. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a soft hum, the door slid open, revealing a long hallway lined with more security doors. Meatball's eyes widened. "Nice work, Juke. You're starting to get the hang of this whole Jedi thing." Mayo grinned, though the excitement was quickly replaced by the gravity of their mission. They couldn't celebrate just yet. They had a reactor to destroy. "We're close," Mayo whispered, his voice steady. "Let's finish this." They pressed on, each step taking them deeper into the Empire's stronghold. The hallway seemed endless, but Mayo could feel the presence of the reactor, pulsing beneath the facility. It wasn't long before they reached a massive door that looked different from the others. This one was reinforced with heavy metal, and it had a large warning sign in the center. "This is it," Meatball said, his tone serious. "We're about to make a big impact." Mayo nodded. "Let's do it." They stood before the reactor's entrance, the moment of truth finally upon them. All they had to do now was destroy it and escape before the Empire noticed. Chapter 5: Reactor Run. The reactor chamber was massive, easily the size of a sports stadium, with a deep pit in the center where the Empire's energy core hummed with a blue, pulsing light. Sparks crackled in the air. Catwalks crisscrossed the room like a giant spiderweb. Pipes hissed. Machines clicked. It was all alive, buzzing with danger. Mayo and Meatball stood on a high platform overlooking the pit. "Okay," Mayo said, Hands on his hips. We break that, and the Empire loses its main power source. That'll stop the mind control signal, right? Meatball sniffed the air dramatically and nodded. Yep. One reactor kablooey equals galaxy saved. No pressure. Mayo glanced around. We need a way down there. And then boom. I say we ride one of those cables like space cowboys, Meatball said, pointing his snout toward a thick wire that sloped downward to the core. You steer. I'll scream. Mayo looked skeptical. That's your plan. No, my plan was to nap in a sunbeam today. This is your dream, remember. With no better options, Mayo took a deep breath, grabbed the cable with his gloved hands, and carefully lowered himself onto it. Meatball clung to his back like a furry backpack. On 3, Mayo whispered. Can I count? Meatball asked. No. Fair. They slid down fast, wind roaring in their ears. The ground rushed up too fast. Brakes, Juke. Brakes. Meatball yelped in Mayo's mind. They landed in a heap near the base of the reactor, Mayo groaning and Meatball sprawled dramatically on his back. I saw my life flash before my eyes, Meatball said, blinking. It was mostly snacks and belly rubs. Focus, Mayo muttered, standing up. We need to plant the charge. He pulled out the device Scylla had given him, a small black orb with blinking red lights. It looked like a toy, but Mayo knew it packed enough punch to turn this whole place into fireworks. Here goes nothing. Mayo approached the reactor, the humming intensifying as he neared the swirling core. He placed the orb against a control panel. Lights flashed. Timer set. 5 minutes, a robotic voice announced. That's our cue to leave, Meatball said. Quickly, before we get vaporized or worse, get caught and vaporized. They turned, but behind them a hiss filled the air. The door to the reactor room slid open, and in stepped someone Mayo instantly recognized, even from across the chamber, Darth Borkus. A towering figure in glinting armor, eyes glowing red beneath a dark helmet. His voice echoed like thunder. You should not have come here, Duke Skywalker. Mayo froze. Borkus, the Empire's deadliest weapon. A fallen Jedi who now served the dark side and hated French bulldogs. I should have guessed we'd have a boss fight, Meatball muttered. Lightsaber in hand, Mayo stepped between Borkus and the reactor. I'm not afraid of you, he said, summoning his blue saber with a sharp snap hiss. You should be, Borkus growled, igniting his crimson blade. The two ran toward each other, sabers clashing in a storm of light and sound. Meatball darted behind machinery. I'll just offer moral support. Mayo swung high, blocked low, ducked and rolled. Borkus was strong, but Mayo was fast and getting stronger with each move. He could feel the force now, guiding his hands, helping him anticipate each strike. Borkus snarled, You're only delaying the inevitable. No, Mayo said through gritted teeth. I'm ending it. Suddenly, a new voice echoed through the chamber. Need a hand? Little brother? Mayo turned, shocked. Jesse stood at the top of the chamber, holding a glowing green saber. Robbie was beside him, gripping a blaster half his size. What are you guys doing here? Jesse smirked. You pulled us into your dream, genius. And Meatball told us you needed backup, Robbie added. Meatball barked from behind a console. I might have sent a dream text. Together, the three brothers fought Borkus, lightsabers flashing, blasters firing, Meatball zipping between enemy feet and biting boots. The countdown on the bomb ticked down. 3, 2, 1. Beep, beep, boom. The explosion lit up the chamber in white-hot fire. The reactor cracked open, energy surging upward in a blinding column of light. Borkus screamed, vanishing in a swirl of shadow. Mayo, Jesse, Robbie, and Meatball dove for cover as the walls collapsed. Everything went white. And then, silence. Chapter 6, The Awakening. Mayo gasped. His eyes flew open. He was no longer in the burning reactor, no longer clutching a lightsaber or flying through the air with his brothers and a sassy French bulldog strapped to his back. Instead, he was staring at the popcorn ceiling of the RV, still dressed in his Star Wars pajamas. The familiar sound of the TV hummed softly in the background, showing the ending credits of Return of the Jedi. The room was dim, lit only by the flickering blue light from the screen. "Meatball?" Mayo croaked. He sat up slowly on the couch, blankets falling around him. Meatball was sprawled out on the rug like a furry rug of his own, snoring peacefully. "Hey," Mayo said, nudging him gently with his toe. "You awake?" Meatball opened one eye, then both, then stared up at Mayo with a look that said, "Did we just dream the same dream?" "Well, that was wild," Meatball said telepathically, yawning. "I've got sand in my ears, and I'm pretty sure I did a backflip." "You were Princess Layla," Mayo said, grinning. "Don't remind me," Meatball muttered. "Do you know how hard it is to run in a flowing white gown? That thing kept tripping me. And the buns on my ears? Not flattering." Mayo laughed. His heart still beat fast in his chest, and he swore he could still feel the heat of the reactor explosion. That had felt too real to be just a dream. Too alive. "Was that really a dream?" he asked. "Define dream," Meatball replied, now rolling onto his back and wiggling. Mayo's dad snored softly from his recliner nearby, arms crossed, still halfway holding a half-empty bowl of popcorn. The RV was quiet otherwise, no lights on, the clock blinking 2:03 a.m. Mayo rubbed his eyes. It felt like we were actually in it. Like, really in it. You were talking. Jesse and Robbie were there. We fought Darth Borkus. It felt like more than a dream. It was more than a dream, Meatball said. It was a Meatball Special Edition Deluxe Cinematic Dream Adventure. Happens once in a lifetime. Twice if you eat spicy pickles before bed. Mayo chuckled. "So what now?" Meatball gave him a serious look. Well, as serious as a small dog with a big head and an underbite can look. "Now? You get some sleep. And tomorrow, we figure out why you're starting to have dreams that pull people in with you." Mayo blinked. "Wait, what?" But Meatball was already curling back into a snoring ball, one ear flopped sideways, one leg twitching like he was chasing stormtroopers. Mayo stared at the ceiling a moment longer. He could still hear the hum of his lightsaber, still feel the force pulsing in his fingertips, still remember the look on Borkus's face when the reactor exploded. And most of all, he knew Meatball was right. This wasn't just any dream. Something strange was happening. Something big. And it had only just begun. Chapter 7. A Disturbance in the Couch Cushions. The next morning, Mayo awoke to the scent of sizzling bacon and the not-so-gentle sound of Robbie humming the Cantina Band theme at full blast from the tiny RV bathroom. "Deet deet 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 deet." Mayo groaned, sat up, and immediately checked his pockets. No lightsaber, no rebel blaster, just a crumpled napkin with half a jelly bean stuck to it. It really had been a dream. Sort of. "Morning, Jedi dropout," Meatball said, hopping up onto the couch beside him. He had a doggy chew shaped like a Millennium Falcon clutched in his mouth. "You slept like a log on Ender. I dreamed I was flying a starfighter, and now I wake up in a rolling metal tube with a 7-year-old singing through the wall," Mayo muttered. "Back to real life." "Real life where your dog talks to you with his mind," Meatball added smugly. "Let's not pretend we're normal." Mayo's stomach growled. In the kitchenette, Mrs. Wexler was flipping pancakes while humming along with Robbie's music. Mr. Wexler was reading something on his laptop, dressed in his usual business casual shirt and pajama pants combo. Jesse, already dressed and brooding like a moody Sith, was quietly munching on toast. "Good morning, sleepyheads," Mom said brightly. "Did you two stay up the whole night?" "We might have," Mayo said. "We did," Meatball corrected, flopping down by his food bowl. "And saved a dream galaxy, thank you very much." Jesse suddenly looked up from his toast. "Hey, Mayo, did you dream about a big red-eyed guy with a cape and a lightsaber last night?" Mayo froze mid-pour of orange juice. Robbie chimed in from the hallway, his toothbrush still foaming in his mouth. Yeah, and I had a green lightsaber. It was awesome. Mayo looked to Meatball, who blinked back. I told you, Meatball said. You pulled them in. Somehow. But how? Mayo whispered. I didn't mean to. Doesn't matter. You did. Mayo sat down slowly at the RV's tiny table. The dream hadn't just been vivid, it had been shared. His brothers had been there with him. They remembered Borkus. Jesse remembered the saber. Robbie remembered flying. This wasn't just imagination anymore. It was something deeper. Think it's a side effect of watching too much Star Wars? Jesse asked dryly, then took another bite of toast. Maybe Mayo lied. Totally, Meatball said at the same time. Definitely not the Force leaking into your subconscious or anything wild like that. Mayo narrowed his eyes. You do think it's something wild. Meatball sat up straight. Okay, look. I'm no Jedi Master. I'm more of a Jedi nibbler. But I do know when weirdness is afoot. And right now, your brain is a movie projector, and somehow your dreams are going widescreen and co-starring the whole family. Should I be worried? Mayo asked. Absolutely, Meatball replied cheerfully. But before Mayo could say anything else, the RV suddenly lurched clunk and came to a full stop. What was that? Dad asked, glancing at the windshield. Jesse stood and peered through the curtains. Is that a guy in a cloak? Everyone rushed to the front of the RV. Standing in the middle of the road was a tall figure in a brown robe. His hood was pulled low, and beside him stood what looked like a droid. Nope, Dad said, throwing the RV in reverse. But before he could back up, the cloaked figure raised a hand, and the RV engine shut off. Everything went silent. Lights off. Dashboard dead. Even the humming fridge gave one last sad buzz before going quiet. What just happened? Mom asked, eyes wide. I think the Force just found us, Mayo whispered. Meatball's eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. Brace yourselves, he said. This dream is leaking. Chapter 8. The Jedi at the Door. The RV was completely silent. Not just turned off, silent in a way that made the hairs on the back of Mayo's neck stand up. Even the birds outside seemed to stop chirping. The hooded figure stood in front of the RV like he had all the time in the world. I'm going out there, Dad said, reaching for the door. No, wait, Mayo blurted, but it was too late. The door swung open with a creak, and Mr. Wexler stepped outside into the warm morning air. The cloaked man didn't move. Neither did the droid beside him, a tall, rectangular, golden unit with glowing blue eyes and long, spindly arms. Can I help you? Mr. Wexler asked in his best dad voice. The man raised his head. His face was young, maybe in his 20s, but his eyes looked ancient. His voice was calm and sure, but powerful like thunder that hadn't decided if it wanted to rumble yet. I am Jalenka, he said, and you are trespassing on sacred ground. Dad blinked. We're parked. On a highway. This is no highway, Jalen said, turning his gaze toward the RV windows. This is the outer rim of your own mind. The line between dream and waking. And you, he pointed directly at Mayo, have brought the Force with you. Mayo shrunk behind the window. Can he see me? Meatball asked nervously. Tell me he can't see me. I'm not wearing pants. Jesse and Robbie crowded next to Mayo. What's going on? Jesse asked. Who's that guy? He says we're not awake, Mayo muttered. That this is a dream. Then how come my stomach hurts? Robbie complained. I ate too many pancakes. Pain exists in dreams, the golden droid said suddenly in a regal voice. Trust me, I've stepped on many a Lego in my memory circuits. The man, Jalen, stepped closer to the RV door. Mayo, son of Wexler, dreamer of galaxies, open the door. Mrs. Wexler looked unsure, like she was about to grab a frying pan. Mr. Wexler raised his eyebrows at Mayo, silently asking, Should I? Mayo stepped forward. Yeah, he said. Let him in. The door creaked again as Jalen and his droid climbed the narrow RV stairs. He looked around curiously, as if the cramped living quarters were a palace. He bowed slightly toward Mom, who blinked in confusion. "I've never been inside a Class C starcraft with a breakfast nook," he said. "It's cozy." "Okay," Jesse said, arms crossed. Someone better start explaining. Jalen turned to Mayo. "You have awakened something rare," he said. "The Force flows through you, but not in the way it flows through Jedi or Sith. You are a weaver, a dreamwalker, one who can bend the veil between worlds." "I'm 11, Mayo said. "And I'm wearing a bathrobe," Jalen replied. "Life is full of surprises." Meatball scoffed. "So what? Mayo has magical dream powers?" Big whoop. "That doesn't explain the giant popcorn bucket I exploded with my brain last night." "You're a guardian," Jalen said to Meatball, as if it were obvious. "Every weaver has one. Yours just happens to be short and opinionated." "Excuse you," Meatball huffed. "I am medium-sized. Thank you very much." Jalen raised a hand and pulled something from under his cloak. A small orb, glowing faintly blue. "This is a starseed," he said. "An anchor to the dream galaxy. You dropped it last night when you blew up the reactor core." Mayo blinked. "I what?" "You left a door open," Jalen said, placing the orb in Mayo's hand. "And now, others are coming through." Suddenly the orb pulsed. The lights flickered. The walls of the RV shimmered like heat waves. Outside, a shadow moved through the woods. A tall figure, with glowing red eyes. "Uh-oh," Meatball said. "Is it too late to return this dream for store credit?" Jalen turned, his lightsaber snapping to life with a snap hiss, casting the whole RV in blue light. "Prepare yourselves," he said. "The Dark Ones are here." To be continued.